One and happy Tuesday. I'd like to welcome you to the our monthly small business call here, presented not only by Deed but also the Office of Small Business and Innovation. For those that I have not had the chance to meet, I'm Andy Donahue. I am the state director for the Minnesota Small Business Development Center. We are co-hosting this with a variety of our resource partners: the Small Business Administration District Office of Minnesota, Minnesota Chamber, obviously Deed here. We have Representative Deed of our Office of Small Business Innovation, obviously here with the SBDC. But then we also have our Small Business Assistance Office and other, co-hosts. So with that, for today, for our monthly call, we are going to be talking about succession planning and the ins and outs of that. So we have four phenomenal speakers that are going to be highlighting the different types of succession planning that are out there. As we know, this is a different generational, topic right now, because there's a variety of different ways in how transitions are happening, and we're seeing quite a bit of that here in the Minnesota ecosystem. So what we're going to do is, first, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Katie Hepner, who is our regional director of the North Central SBDC in Brainerd, that is hosted by Central Lakes College. And I will let Katie take it away.
Thanks, Andy. Happy to be here with you all this afternoon. In a few moments, I'm going to kick it to one of our consultants, Mike Paulus, who's going to share with you all his outlook on legacy planning. Now, you might all be asking yourselves, well, what is legacy planning? That's how we have kind of rebranded exit and transition planning. We had a lot of different conversation, and there was a bit of resistance, and still is, from folks. When you bring up exit and transition planning, it can bring up a lot of feelings and emotion. And the words exit and transition can kind of remind you of some other maybe not too favorable things happening in life, like death or divorce, or scary reasons why you might have to leave your business. And so when Mike and I were, chatting over a cup of coffee, what can we do to make this more palatable for folks and to make it something that they look forward to and take a lot of pride in, not just something they do to check the box. And we were talking, well, everyone wants to leave a legacy of some sort. Like, that's one of the main reasons for being in business, is building that generational wealth that you're able to pass on to your family, or leaving behind some sort of strong reputation in the community for being a good business and a good business owner. You don't just want to wave goodbye to that legacy once you're ready to retire. So the past few years, when we've had our conversations around exit and transition, we kind of try to avoid those words and replace it with legacy. And so when we're doing our consulting that's based on this work, we really focus on that practical, tactical guidance that you're going to hear from Mike. And, there's a lot of conversations around this topic, really good conversations, but we at the SBDC kind of like to get down to brass tacks. So you're ready to transition, or you're ready to look forward to the next phase. What do you actually have to do to move on? And so that's where we come in. I do want to give shout out to the other presenters on the call, because they have been very formative in this work. Michael Darger, I think back to March of 2020, you led an exit and transition / employee ownership workshop up in Duluth. And that was, I think, 2 weeks before COVID really changed our world. But even thinking back to that material from back then, very formative of this work. You also were generous enough to come to Brainerd and lead a workshop for some of us consultants in 2023 here in Brainerd. So that's great that built on this. And we do have a partnership with Minnesota CEO Kristen Kennedy. You're going to hear from her, where we provide no-cost business valuations for folks. And so that can be one of the bigger barriers and one of the bigger heartaches, if we're being honest, is, well, how much is the business actually worth? And so luckily we have folks like Mike on our team who's able to dive into that, kind of eliminate that barrier. So without further ado, Mike, I'm going to kick it over to you. Talk us through legacy planning.
Well, great introduction. Thank you, Katie. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. Yeah, legacy planning, it's a topic. Katie and I put together a presentation that we've done a number of times throughout parts of the state. And it's usually a 2 hour presentation. So I'm going to certainly boil this down to just a few minutes and hit some of the high points so you understand how we go about doing our legacy planning. And I would say that since we developed this program, I have actually used practical application of these tools, and I have successfully helped some clients with legacy planning, and actually so far as actually transitioning into new owners and the sellers being able to move on to the next phase of life that they were looking forward to. So we know that the tool works. And what we did was we looked at legacy planning in layers, and we wanted to present something to the attendees to our workshops that they could take home and follow very easily. Because as you know, it's a big topic with much to consider. But we found that people, if they have a checklist and they can mark a box, they feel that sense of accomplishment. And there are some easy wins on the checklists, and there are some ones that, are a bit of a gut punch that they need to work through. But so there's 3 layers, and the strategy is to work through each layer in order. You do the first layer first, the second layer second, the third layer third. Where they have control is in that first layer, they can do any task they want first. They don't have to do anything first within that layer, just whatever you want. So they can choose any activity in the first layer. And then when they're done with the first layer, they move on to the second layer and they can pick any activity there to do first. Ultimately, though, they need to complete them all before they move on to the third layer. So the activities that are in the first layer, the first one we have listed, and they tend to do this first anyway, is to register with the local Small Business Development Center, SBDC, for assistance. Another activity is to get your personal affairs in order, including making a will. This is one that we find as they are working through the first layer activities, they tend to do last. But since they're not allowed to move on until they do it, they do get pressed into doing it. But we have those discussions about why that's important. Create or update a business history. And we find that's important again because these people, these businesses, they want to leave a legacy. What is the legacy? And the only way you can encapsulate that is by writing a history, the good points, the bad points, the challenges you had to navigate through. It's kind of cathartic for our clients who are looking to sell and transition out of business ownership is to leave a document that the new owners, the new operators can kind of guide the essence of the business by. Get the business affairs and records in order. Of course, you need to know where everything is as the new owner. So that's a legacy step in order to keep it moving forward. And then invest your time in a strategy mapping session, if appropriate. And a strategy mapping session is a different service offered by the SBDC. In the past, it was a module we put together. It's like a strategic planning session for what it looks like moving forward for the business. And that's appropriate really for larger businesses with multiple levels of management. And so definitely not always appropriate for businesses that we run into up here in the North Central region. So once they do that, then they feel great because they get to turn the page and move on to the second layer and the second layer activities, which include kind of some boring stuff like compiling all the job and position descriptions and putting together a role specific handbook. I tell them, go ahead, put the NFL game on in the background, and you can knock off some of this stuff just to keep you engaged. It's things that you tend to not really think about or want to do, but we try to make it fun and help them through that. And then if there's a plan for certain employees within the company that you'd like to kind of pass that plan on to the new owners because you've got this superstar rock star assistant GM that you think could really be COO at one point, write that out. Not that the new owners need to abide by that plan, but it's good that they have that kind of communication. You can promote employees to replace retirements or open positions. You can make organizational changes or you can propose those. So we kind of talk through that. We consider your legacy options, and we spend a lot of time with our clients to think about what the various legacy options are. Liquidating the business, selling it. If so, how would you sell it? Are we doing open market? Are we doing a private transaction? That kind of thing. And to just step through who all the possible owners are for their business. And in order to determine that, they might have a family member, they might have an employee who's interested in owning. That's the time on this checklist. Now it's time to have the conversations and gauge how serious is that family member. Maybe you always wanted your kids to take over the business, but now is the time we all sit down over coffee and have a non-judgmental conversation. Do you really want to take over the business, or do you just want to cash 10% of the check and go travel Europe? So we help guide those conversations, and then we encourage our clients to determine their timeline. Sometimes they come in and they're ready to go right now. They want out. Sometimes they think they're ready to go, and it turns out they're not. And other times they're not ready to go for maybe 5 or 6 more years. So we get that timeline kind of hammered out. Then we're moving on to the third layer. The third layer are what are your plans after retirement? We start digging into that. There's research somewhere and I can't source it. I haven't tried, I haven't looked for it, but I remember coming across it once that domestic violence and divorces tend to go up some when after people sell their business. It was this all-encompassing thing, and so now they're faced with kind of different life challenges. So we try to confront those types of things in the third layer. The SBDC consultant values the business. You'll notice this is in the third layer, not in the first layer. Everyone's like, what's it worth? Well, we'll get there. How serious are you? Let's get you through some of the steps first. So we value it in the third tier. We propose various financial structures on how this business might transition based on who they've identified are their potential buyers, because those structures are going to vary dramatically based on how much cash the buyer has to bring into the transaction. We encourage them to go obtain other valuations if they so desire. We do ask that they refer their potential buyer to SBDC, to one of our other consultants for loan packaging and analysis. And then they meet with their business attorney, execute a purchase agreement, select their buyer, and that's it. And that's how we help to manage people through this process. And we found it to be very successful so far. Certainly open to questions, and I don't know if I need to hand this off to somebody when I'm done, but that's all I have to say.
Oh, your list is great. I downloaded the legacy planning checklist for people if they want to look at that in the checklist. Mike, do you find that this is, well, I was going to ask you a whole bunch of questions, but basically this is something for people to explore. They don't have to have a buyer, correct? This is something for people to just start thinking about. They can look for ESOP, right? Employee ownership. I mean, this is to get them like looking at the whole process, right?
Right, exactly. They might just know that they want to sell and have no idea that they could approach their favorite supplier and see if they were interested, or just kind of having those conversations and having the checklist expands their mind into different possibilities.
Yeah. Do you have some, just off the top of your head, some examples of a good outcome for people they're thinking, well, my kids don't want to do this. The person who I think wanted to buy this. Do you have some examples of like very good outcomes for people who are maybe in this position? They think, I can't think of anybody who wants to buy this business.
Yeah, I've got a resort right now, a very nice resort, who first time I met with them, the owners, they had it all figured out. Or our daughter's going to take over. She's general manager right now. And I had that conversation. What are you going to do for the son? Oh, well, they hadn't considered that. And then what if this? So having worked through that process and working through the checklists, and they had those honest conversations, they realized the daughter really didn't want it.
Ooh, okay.
And so here she was so calm in knowing that she had this solution figured out, and to realize that it wasn't a legitimate solution. And now we're doing an open market kind of search. She's much more relieved than just, I think, having assumed that the daughter had really wanted it. So that's a positive without actually having transitioned the business yet. But yet another business where an older couple came in, he was recently diagnosed with MS. He's noticed some changes already. He's like, I don't know how much time I have, and we don't know, we don't want to give this away, but we don't know what to do. How can I start enjoying my grandkids and my kids with the little
Oh,
time
yeah,
I have
yeah,
left?
yeah.
And we went through the checklist in probably like 3 months. They were super motivated and very successfully transitioned to a buyer who paid them their number that they wanted. And they're off enjoying their grandkids with the time that they have. So I think those two kind of highlight, in different ways the success.
Yeah. I mean, the that is a super positive outcome. I mean, things happen and you go, okay, what I've run this business. I wasn't thinking about what I'm going to do with it, maybe. So
Right,
that's
exactly.
awesome. So thanks. I mean, looking at the checklist is certainly something I will look at it.
Mark's frozen on us, it looks like. Somebody might have to take the reins here. Mark froze up.
Do you want me to do my PowerPoint, Beth? Yes? Okay.
I was gonna say, yep, Kirsten, why don't you jump
Okay,
ahead
okay.
there? Oh, Mark's back here. Mark,
okay,
can we
okay.
transition over to Kirsten with Minnesota CEO, and then I think we can certainly open up for questions for all our presenters towards the end.
Great. So I want you to know I changed my first slide to legacy. I had transition on it, so thank you for that. North Central SBDC.
Very good on the fly.
Yeah, well, I was like, whoops. Okay, so I'm Kirsten Kennedy. I run the Minnesota Center for Employee Ownership, and I am so excited to have a relationship with North Central SBDC and just all that gives owners that oftentimes are just afraid. It's who they are, it's who they've been. They have nothing written down, they don't have a plan, and so they do nothing. They keep doing what they've been successful at doing. So I'm going to talk about legacy planning and why we need it. We know that we have 52,334 approximately businesses in Minnesota. This is 5 years ago information that are basically 60 or older now. There's 3 forms of employee ownership: employee stock ownership plan, or an ESOP, which is probably the one that is most common people hear about but don't know a lot about; an employee ownership trust, which is really great for kind of all sizes of business and fits squarely in between; and then worker-owned cooperatives. And I was just at the Co-Minnesota event, and it's interesting that most people think of buying cooperatives or other forms of cooperatives, but they don't think about worker-owned cooperatives. So we're going to just delve into employee ownership models as a choice for legacy. And we're going to start with the employee stock ownership plan. It has the best tax benefits. It also has the most requirements. You can see here, it's stock owned by a trust, and they have an annual allocation, so it's a qualified retirement plan. That's important to remember for the rest of our types of employee ownership. The size, I always say minimum is 20 with a 750,000 profitability. There are some that are smaller that do well, but it's really hard because it's a retirement account. So that could be one of the drawbacks. I just wanted to share with you, these are just some. We have 254 employee stock ownership plans or ESOPs in Minnesota. And here's just a few. I can't fit them all on there. But I want to just mention, I just did a Worker Co podcast with AbleNet. It is the greatest story no one's ever heard of in Minnesota. Started by Cheryl V. Knight. She had 1 year of Anoka Technical College and started working with kids with disabilities that were nonverbal. She spent 4 years as a nonprofit under the Minneapolis Cerebral Palsy Center, and she transitioned her 11 ultimately workers that helped her build the business to an ESOP, and they had 11 workers and 7 million in EBITDA. Today, AbleNet's average is close to 1.7 million in their tax accounts, the retirement account they've built, compared to the average of 75,000 that most Minnesotans have. An employee ownership trust I mentioned earlier. This is a really nice 300,000 profitability. It is a perpetual trust. It does not have the big tax benefits. It's not federally regulated. We have one employee ownership trust in Minnesota, Code Weavers. They have been very happy. They transacted in 2023 and they have given out dividends every year. Some of the distinctions just that I have in my head about employee ownership is ESOP is a qualified retirement. You get the benefits when you retire or leave. With employee ownership trusts and worker-owned cooperatives, you get those benefits annually. It's decided on what everyone gets. Here's just a quick with employee ownership trust, kind of showing you how it goes and why some people chose it. I will say that Jeremy White, who is the Code Weavers founder, he thought he was going to become an ESOP and spent 150,000 on attorneys, but he has coders all over the world, and you can't have employees around the world under an employee stock ownership plan. That is in America. Here are the types of cooperatives we talked about. When I started this work, I knew about all of them: the producer, the multi-stakeholder, purchasing, consumer co-ops. I just assumed that all the co-ops I belonged to paid their employees well. That's not the case. So worker cooperatives are my jam. The Improve Group, I just want to show, worker-owned co-op transitioned in 2023, 28 worker owners now. She is very happy with that transition, and she has now stepped out of the company. Some owners stay. That is a big fallacy around employee ownership, that owners only transition out of their workplaces. Some owners, like up here in Duluth at Westcom, Shane Stolp was 38 years old when he transitioned to an ESOP, Westcom Inc. in Duluth, and he plans to work there for the rest of his career. So he will be paid back, he and his brother, a fair market value. So if someone comes to me and says, I want as much money as I can, and I want to be done in 6 months, employee ownership is probably not for them. Here are a couple of other examples. Happy Earth Cleaning, founded in 2000 and converted to a co-op in 2019. They started with about 10 employees, and now they're at 20 employees with 5 founding members. Terra Firma is a building firm, building and remodeling, and they are the one person, one vote. They are very traditionally structured as a co-op, and they are very happy. They are very happy. A lot of people have been able to buy homes that they didn't think they would ever be able to buy, and they are just growing by leaps and bounds. Want to learn more about employee ownership? Here's what we have. We have an Advisor's Edge coming up, and we have a self-paced ambassador program that we offer to our SBDCs and CETA. If you're interested, just email me. We have 6 Worker Co podcasts out right now, and please follow us on Instagram. So we would be excited to partner with any SBDC that's interested in having that legacy mention of employee ownership and helping the owners really that come through us get that help they need to make a choice for their legacy. Thank you. Did I go over my time?
No, Kirsten,
Okay.
you are fine. Took me a second to unmute myself. I gotta put a video back on. No, absolutely not. No, what we're trying to do is just have a conversation. So that is awesome. So I was just also padding for time. I know Mike had to go step back. We're gonna pass it over to Mike Darger with the extension. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna pin you, Mike, and you can go for it.
All right.
Love the background. It's like Pacific Northwest coast.
Very good. That's just right at the border of Oregon and California. So pretty good. Okay. Know your
Absolutely.
geography.
Yes.
My
Go
picture
for
from
it.
a pre-pandemic trip. Okay, I'm going to share my
Yeah.
screen. And thanks for the invitation. Let's see. I'm going to stop sharing and do that. Well, can people see that? No, I'm going to stop sharing and do it because I'm not going to put it in slideshow because my computer acts weird when I do that.
Okay.
I'm going to do advanced sharing and do that. Okay. Here we go. The green box. I like the green box. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and I'll start at the beginning. That's a very good place to start. Thanks for the invitation, Bethany and Andy and gang. So it's good to be here. Nice crowd. So I'm Michael Darger. Come on. There we go. Sorry. So that's me. I'm like the fourth person at Extension's community economics team to lead our business succession and transition efforts. So we've been at this for over a decade, and I think we've had some successes, but we still find this to be a difficult topic. And we're just want to name that because this is a difficult topic to get people to pay attention to, whether it's the business owner or economic developers or others. So, but we're here for you, statewide University of Minnesota Extension. So I didn't know exactly what the audience. I think I see a lot of my economic development friends, and I'm assuming I see some business owners in the chat and the participant list. So I've got some stuff for both of you. Talking a little bit about the importance of this issue at a macro level, and we have some business owner research. We've done two research projects, and then we have some stuff on our website. We have a very good website on this topic. So
Yes.
anything I say is pretty much at that website. Okay, so just to double down on Kirsten's good data, the most recent data from the federal government is that we have 53% of our business owners in Minnesota are 55 plus, and that's about 52,000 plus businesses. So this is no small issue. We have aging presidents and we have aging business owners. You can argue about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. It is a thing. Extension research. This is my project I led in 2023. And I did see you, Katie, in 2023 in Brainerd. I wasn't on this topic until 2021, but like I said, Extension's been at this for a while. So we did a scientific study of business owners, almost 300. It's statistically significant. We reached over 300 business owners across the state of Minnesota. And so it's pretty good stuff. It wasn't a snowball. It's scientific. That means it's random. We spent a lot of money and sent out about 10,000 pieces of US mail. So it's pretty good stuff, but it's on that website right there. And so what we're trying to do is find out how aware are business owners of this issue? What are their attitudes and aspirations? What do they want? What do they believe? Mike was talking about, there's different options. No one knows all of this. There's no one who is sufficient by themselves to be and I do use the term business succession and transition. Yes, it's about legacy, but sometimes this is about a 42-year-old or a 49-year-old getting out of the business. It's not always about legacy, but I like that name that you all came up with. But I'm sticking succession and transition because succession's about a process, transition's about an event, right? Transferring the ownership. So I'm sticking with BST. And again, there's no one name or no one aspect about this issue that is the only way to think about it. So again, we're trying to think about what kind of actions have they taken? How ready are they, the human being, and the business? Those better be two different things, or you don't have a transferable business, right? The human has to get out of the business for it to transfer. And that's just like kind of grim, like Katie was talking about, but these are just things we have to deal with if we're going to be emotionally capable, intelligent people. So, and then what do they want to do? What are their intentions? So like I said, we published everything. The survey itself might be the most useful thing. You can find that, but you can find data dashboards, published articles, podcasts, webinars, all sorts of stuff at that page there. So I want to make the point that this is not an individual pursuit. Just like in real estate, a realtor will tell you, for sale by owner, good luck with that. You can sometimes do it, but you might not have optimal results. I would say even more emphatically that a business transition is not a time for transition by owner. Now, there's some things the owner needs to do, but there's experts out there and all these different things that several of you have alluded to already, it's not really a time for a TBO, transition by owner. But the owner obviously is the most important person. They have to do a lot of stuff. So this is a good resource that my friend Kirsten found from the Ohio Employee Ownership Center. Yeah, they're employee ownership people like she is, but this is a nice unbiased guide. I like what you did, Mike, on the little outline thing. This is a nice 30-page guide that's available on their website. So help yourself. But thanks for doing that thing, Mike. I like the multi-layer approach you have. So there are two aspects to readiness for business. I already talked about that. One is the personal readiness and one is the business readiness. We studied that in my research. So, and there's some stuff that my predecessor, Liz Templin, found when she did a research study of rural business succession. She studied success. She studied businesses in deep rural places in Minnesota. They also collaborated with North Dakota, that the business was still around 3 years later. What happened then? My research was looking out the front window. Okay, business owner, how ready are you? And hoping to do more research this next year. I just found out today that I'm going to get a graduate student, so this is a big deal. So interesting ideas. This is probably our fanciest looking data dashboard from my research. So what you see here is one on the top is the number of responses with 286, but then that middle box, 3.58 on a 6-point scale where 6 is to a great extent and 1 is not at all. We found the business owners were saying they're personally ready about a 3.6. And they said their business, just to the right of that, was a 3.62. So that's right about in the middle. This is self-appraisal, so it's not their accountant or their exit planner or anyone else saying how ready they are. It's themselves. But you see the people they used to get information go from accountants all the way down to people like me, less than 1%, college or extension people. But you see the ecosystem here, right? None of us is sufficient. Some of them are more important than others. But, you know, SBDCs, no offense, they're right in here at 12.7%. You know, that just shows the ecosystem. But even accountants are not above 60% with these existing business owners. So it just goes to show a whole lot of us have to know a little bit about this, and we got to help the business owners. So back to that team thing. This is what we found in my research. Those top 3 of the top 5 advisors were the accountant, the attorney, and the spouse. So the bar on the left on that 6-point scale, this is talking about the business readiness. So when we asked about business readiness, the businesses that didn't talk to their consultant, their attorney, or their spouse/partner were less than the midpoint on business readiness. But if they use an accountant, their readiness went up from a 3.2 up to like a 3.6. If they use their attorney, same thing. If they talk to their life partner, guess what? They added 0.6. That makes sense, right? Talking to the most important person in your life, you wouldn't, you know. So when they added all 3, their readiness for the business went from a 3.2 to about a 4.8. So that goes from the kind of ready to ready or close to ready. So that's all statistically valid. I had stats and math majors helping me. So that's solid. That's not just, you know, we can project that to the population. So we have a bunch of dashboards. For those of you like me, I'm a boomer. I didn't even know what a data dashboard was a year and a half ago, but one of our new hires here at Extension, 20-something, she says, let's stop having all these long reports. Let's have data dashboards. Well, long reports have their place, but now I know what a data dashboard. I have 5 of these where you can interact with the data from our research of business owners across the state, including your area. And by the way, since this is an SBDC-centric call, you can sort by SBDC region. So how about that, Andy? You can pick, you know, Twin Cities Metro or the other 8 SBDCs in the state, and you can cut into the data that way. So that's kind of cool. Just be careful. Like if you get down to 9 or 18 as a response, you're getting away from statistical significance, but you know what those 9 or 8 people thought. So those dashboards are online. And some bad news. I think Mike and Katie were alluding to the fact that you need a written business succession or legacy plan, right? It can't be something that's been between your ears. It better be in writing because things happen. So only about a fifth of my respondents had done their plan in the last 3 years or had a plan at all. And only a few of them had done things to increase the value of the business. That gets into the thing about avoiding taxes versus creating value by showing that you generate cash flow so that some other human being will buy your business from you, right? Because it will take care of them and their family. So that's a paradigm shift, of course, for some people. The good news was that most of these 300 business owners were talking about in the family. Most of them were talking about in the side of the business. And about a third of them had gotten that formal business valuation, which is incredibly important, right? To have an actual professional valuation, not what your brother-in-law tells you about your business, right? Unless they're a professional business valuation person. So other friends in the ecosystem, John Keimig, family business expert at St. Thomas. Here's a video from an exit planner, Elaine Ross Hansen. Those are videos that we have on the extension website. They're little 2 or 3, 4-minute videos that you can access or business owners can access to help them with different aspects, including several on employee ownership. So this is my next exciting project is creating a class for economic developers, chamber officials, and other people who are around the business owners so we can deliver this across the state. And one of them is all about kind of the art of the deal, right? How to do the accounting, lawyer, mergers and acquisition, business valuation, blah, 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 all that technical assistance stuff. But really, it's the emotional intelligence part that there hasn't been a lot delivered. And that's what we're going to try to do in our course of extension with 2 private sector people, if I can pull it off. We just got a great proposal yesterday where there's a person who is an expert in change and a person who's a M&A. There's no one person who's sufficient, of course, but that's what we want to do is deliver a class for people like you all. And if, when I hired that research student, these are the topics I'm thinking about. So if any of you have ideas now or later, I'm personally interested in employee ownership as the business retention and expansion officer at Extension for the last quarter century. My hypothesis is that if you can distribute or broaden the ownership of businesses, locally owned businesses across Minnesota, you're going to make those more resilient, higher performing, and less likely to move because they have all these employees that don't really want to move. They like their town, right? So, but we want to do some more qualitative. We've done a bunch of quantitative. We want to do some qualitative. So with that, I'll stop jabbering. And that was my 10-minute speed of delivery. Back to whoever's doing this.
No, you're fine, Michael. That's great. That is a lot of information.
Yeah.
Here, I will unpin you. I will pin myself. That is just a lot of information, hopefully for the people that are joining this call. There's so many aspects of it. There are reasons to sell, there are reasons to move on, whether you want to do it, whether you need to do it, whether you haven't thought about it, whether you have thought about it. So if we want to transition, Beth or Maddie, if you can help me with the chat. I only saw one question so far in the chat. It hadn't directly connected with the topic so far. It was, is there someone who can help me make an online catalog? So if we want to transition to that chat question real quick, if anyone else had seen that. Oh, and this is my favorite part, when no one else talks but me. That is one of my favorite points. But I would while people are thinking about answering that question, the Mike's checklist for succession or legacy is really good. Those are, like I said, those are more topics that I am trying to transition when I speak to people, even about starting their business, because the conversations should include that, and certainly the conversations that I have with people planning on what they are going to do with their business. So I can throw it around to different people in the meeting if they have other questions, or if they had an answer to a question about who they could speak to about starting an online catalog.
Well, I got an answer for the question that just came in from Sean.
Sure.
O'Neill,
Absolutely.
and that is that, yeah, one thing that's interesting, so we studied businesses between 5 and 500 employees. Not a single, when we had a dozen or 2 dozen or so between 250 and 500, not a single one of those businesses answered the survey. My hunch, I can't prove this, but my hunch is that those businesses have this transfer exit planning thing figured out, right? Their businesses have got to a certain scale. So they're like not worried about it. So they're less interested in the topic. But we did find, Sean, that there is a difference in there's a bunch of differences based on the size of the business. So the most of our respondents were 5 to 10 and like 5 to 9, 10 to 20, whatever the thing is. And if you go into the dashboards that show you, that allow you to look at the size, you'll see differences on what they care about and some other things. Because we did ask the business owners about their values. We use the word factor, but we're trying to get at what do they care about. So there's a lot of stuff in our 5 data dashboards where you can interact with the data, and there are differences. There are some slight differences between Twin City metro businesses and rest of state. And so you can also look at NAICS codes. You can look at industry codes. They're all kind of shades of gray, right? But there are differences. So I invite you to play with that data and let me know what you find out.
Yeah, so we have another question here from Kirsten. Understanding this can be a sensitive topic, what outreach techniques have you found most effective in encouraging business owners to start thinking about succession planning?
Yep. So one of the things we're doing outreach for is using our partners is going to chambers. So I raised my family in North Branch, Minnesota, which is in East Central Minnesota, and our chambers were the hub of our businesses. They had relationships with each other. They loved to go and have learning. And I was mayor of my community for a couple of terms. And as far as economic development or thinking about the future, it was in kind of those meetings when they learned things. I would still argue that some businesses perhaps did not have all the information they needed, but a lot of business owners would talk to our SBDC or the HRA EDA. What I have found is they want to talk to people that kind of live by them. They want to feel safe. They want to feel like no one's going to know about it for some reason. They don't want people to know. So what I would say is the outreach, because I would say less than 1 in 1,000 people in Minnesota have ever heard of employee ownership. And I say that from presenting at big groups and having 4 people raise their hand. So I would say we are on a public service campaign. So as much of one of the things I think can help is our partnerships, right? So that if it comes to me, most business owners come to me and here's the reasons why. They either had a health, something happened. They have a spouse or partner that said, you promised me we would travel or be together. And or they get burnt out. But I will also tell you that 70% of owners thought their children were going to take over and the children are not coming home to run the business. And so then they start going, well, that was my plan. What's my new plan now? So I would say 90% of businesses think they're worth almost double what they are when they get a valuation. Sometimes, hopefully some people are a little closer. A lot of companies have not kept good books. They've been a very successful business. And so for me, it's creating those rooted in regions, systems of small business development centers and all the other partners there. So those development dollars stay in the region too. Right. So instead of having advisors come for the metro, is building up those ecosystems to have enough people you can go to for help for those business owners. Because if you're like Rush City that lost their mill and through 32 jobs, they didn't get those jobs back. That is a huge hit to a community that's already struggling. So what I would say is most owners that come through us, we've had about 800 since 2020, look at 2 types of employee ownership. And now that I know I can go, I can send them to Katie. I can send them to North Central to have that, because here's where they get hooked up. When they find out they're going to have to pay for evaluation or business modeling, or feasibility study, and they hear what it can cost, I think in their minds, they're like, I don't even know if I'm going to do it. So why am I going to do that? I think they go back to that, I'll just wait. So having resources that we can have, and we do have a couple of big grants in that actually have some money for that. So we can pay providers that are going to use their hours, even if they're low cost or free services, to just build that up of like, here's where you can go, business owners. So I would say the chambers, talking about it as many meetings. I love the SBDCs in Minnesota because I feel like, especially in greater Minnesota, they are the hub.
Yeah.
Become the
Yes.
hub. They know you,
Yeah.
they've grown up with you oftentimes, you're in their community. And so
Yes.
I think that
Yeah.
our success, the Metro has plenty of developers. The Metro for ESOPs or anytime has plenty of developers ready to go. I
Okay.
think it's making sure that those ecosystems, we root them in whatever region, so those owners can go to their region. I
Okay.
think that's going to be the most successful. So like what you guys are doing with your, I would love to put your checklist with, reach out here on our website.
Sure.
So people can go on and see and just go
Yeah.
click. That's the other thing. Owners aren't going to try something if it's messy or they can't figure it out right away because they don't
Okay.
want to say they don't know. And then the other thing is I presented at the Non-Traditional Lenders Forum in Duluth, and 4 people did raise their hands that knew. And I go, if our non-traditional lenders don't know that they're afraid of doing capital stacks for those transitions, we have to educate them so they're not so,
Yes.
I don't want to say they're afraid of it. It's just a little different than what they're used to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you find in your personal experience, is this a Minnesota thing? Is this an upper Midwest thing? I mean, I just don't know. Is this just
Yeah.
something, well, it's just how we do things in the Midwest? I mean, East Coast, West Coast? I mean, are they more willing to take chances?
I think that it depends. I think often like metro centers seem to have more of an ecosystem built up because
Okay.
there are so many partners and levers. It just seems in all the work
Okay.
I've done in my life, everything's siloed. So what I'm saying is in this call right now, we're breaking down some silos and going,
Good.
we are free and unbiased. I am agnostic, the type of employee ownership, whether they decide on that or decide to go somewhere else. I just want them to be ready so that we don't lose
Yeah.
any jobs, any businesses, because those businesses give their dollars in the community. That's where
Yes.
they have their kids in the schools. And I just go, that's going to be the magic sauce. And then working with foundations and the partners in Duluth to just go, here's what you have to do if someone just asks about it, right? You can send them
Yeah.
to SBDC, see where they're at, because everyone needs to know what they're worth before they go try to sell it. And then with employee ownership, the one difference is only about 40% of owners exit. Then most transacted ESOPs and stuff, those owners
Yep.
sit down for a while as the CEO.
I
Sometimes they
did
have-
not know that.
Yeah,
That's
me either.
awesome to learn.
Me
Yeah.
either. So it's
that's
sometime I
great.
think is a growth strategy. Startups, again, are really worker-owned cooperatives and employee ownership trust with those lower profitabilities.
Yeah.
And I would say the employee ownership trust is really going to hit most small to medium businesses. Like that's the choice for them. The employee stock ownership plan, at 750,000 profitability, that's a lot more than some businesses have. But there are also great organizations that can help with like gap funding. So for worker-owned cooperatives, shared capital, you can just call them up and they'll just have a conversation with you. Any advisors that are listed on our page or partners, you can go straight to them or you can call me up. Anyone that's on that site will meet with your owners for free for an hour. There's no cost, they explore. And a lot of times I've had an owner that I was with for a year, not doing technical assistance, just being there to coach and sit in meetings so that they went through all 3 types of employee ownership and then chose
cool.
not to do any of them. So I think Michael Darger is right. When he did his study, employee ownership the knowledge about employee ownership was underneath liquidation. That's how, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right. It's right. ESOPs competed pretty well with liquidation, but just yesterday, I'm talking to this mergers and acquisition person who I'm talking about doing this new course about business succession. And I brought up employee ownership and they immediately went to ESOP. Now, it should be said, Mark, that Minnesota is a leading state for ESOPs. There's nothing to be like, we are a leader. We have some of the highest density of employee ownership in the form of ESOPs. Only certain companies qualify. You have to spin off a lot of cash. It's regulated by the ERISA Act, Department of Labor, blah, blah. It's for only certain companies, but we're behind on co-ops. But again, Minnesota is the leading state for co-ops in the country's history. But those co-ops are ag co-ops and natural food co-ops and co-ops like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this thing about worker-owned cooperatives, that's really ripe for Minnesotans to embrace that. And I should say that there's this whole kind of there is a movement in the state for more shared ownership. And you know, you get sometimes people might think that's about political philosophy, whatever, but I really think that the research on employee ownership, which is mostly out of Rutgers University, I presented at their conference this year, is that both companies and employees do better when they have a cut of the action. That kind of makes sense. It makes me think of President George W. Bush. He used to talk about the ownership economy or the ownership. So, but having said that, owning a business is complicated. Not everyone wants to be an owner. And co-ops are weird animals. I was just on a co-op board for 3 years and almost drove me crazy. So you got to find the right solution
Sure.
for you and your business. And that's where the values and the legacy comes in, right? So it really, there's no right answer for every situation. That's why we need we need such a broad and deep bench of ecosystem people willing to help.
Mark, I sent to Beth so she can send it out. We generate a Minnesota Top 50 ESOP report every year of the top 50 ESOP. So it goes down to what individuals, that's where the AbleNet, and you'll see some other Minnesota companies. Right now, I'm working with Kent State to do an employee ownership, Minnesota, like the state of employee ownership. So doing the 250 plus ESOPs in the same manner. So Beth, please send it out to everyone. You can kind of see what that will look like and then aggregate. We have to go differently in to find out about worker-owned cooperatives and our one employee ownership trust. They're just going to share it. So we can see like, hey, this is a big deal, right? People having almost 1.7 million that work on a line in their retirement account. That's a big deal. And so just going, yeah, it matters. And the one thing about ESOPs, which some of you might not know, is once you hit 30% employee owned, you don't pay any taxes, state or federal, on your profitability. So that goes all the way up to 100%. So if a company is 100% employee owned in Minnesota, they do not pay federal or state taxes on their profitability. And that's why you see a lot of employee owned companies doing acquisitions. That's one of the first thing I ask owners. Would you be willing to be acquired as one of your choices?
That's awesome information. Yeah. That is phenomenal information. Michael, and you said it. It's just options and options and options. There's different types of businesses. I have a friend who is a plug and play person. He leases himself out. He is a CEO. He is a CFO. He is an accountant, and that's what he does. He works for Robert Half, and it's interesting hearing him what he does. He goes into companies, but it's interesting his experience, and he works for private owned companies. He works for companies that have just been bought out from private investors, and it's interesting to see that there's lots of companies out there. They need different help. Sometimes people within the company are going, they know how it's run. They didn't start the company. They are employees. They would like to do it. They may see how things could be run better. So there are options. Yeah. This has been great. This has been wonderful. I am monitoring the chat. I don't see other questions. I certainly see some comments that people have appreciated the information. Thanks to Michael. Thanks to Katie. Thanks to Kirsten. Thanks to Michael. If we do not have any other questions.
There's one more question, Mark.
Sure. What do you got, Beth?
I have, well, now I lost it. Just a second. Make this a little bit bigger. Is there any more, well, actually Mike is asking if there's any more recent research that people would like. Maybe that is all. I'm sorry.
No, I see what you're saying from Michelle.
Yeah, and Michelle. Yep.
Yeah, I know I'm having a hard time just trying to just scroll and getting all of it.
Yeah. This is a new layout, everyone, so we're doing our best to do this.
It says, do you think I should? Why? What are you hearing about my business? Personally, I'm okay with bringing it up, but with sensitivity.
That's great, Michelle. And I
Yeah.
would point out there's a video from an economic developer. I've got a couple of YouTube videos with Amy. She's with CETA. Amy, I forget her last name, but she's on our YouTube site. You'll find it on our website. But she builds it right into her business retention and expansion visit. Let's say Mark's got a business, and she'll say, "Okay, Mark, do you have a business succession plan? Is it in writing?" And she'll just kind of, and then you can get grumpy and say it's none of your business, but you let her into their business to do the B or E visit. So why wouldn't you? So I think that's a perfect place. But there's so many other opportunities where I really want you all to feel, don't be afraid. You don't have to be the expert, but you bringing it
Yeah.
up shows that you care about their business. And this is important to your community, you know, so they need to hear that.
Yeah, and Michael, I've watched a number of your videos, and it's really easy to say, oh, I just watched 4 minutes of that. Let me go on to the other ones, and it's kind of the intent of this call also. It's just conversations. There's no one saying, oh, you did it wrong, you're done, don't
Right.
watch these videos, get out of here, we're not interested in helping you. No, it is just a constant series of conversations. And what one of my biggest takeaways from these calls is SBDCs are here for you. There are free services. There are other organizations that are here. And if people haven't really let that sink in, these are government and state services that are sponsored. There are free services that want to help you. There are mentor services that are free that people want to help you succeed. It helps us all succeed. So that is, again, the biggest takeaway. So we appreciate everybody being on this call, presenting, listening, asking questions. So thanks everybody. We appreciate you being here. I always learn something, and I hope everybody takes away something that is useful for them.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Oh,
thank you.
Parker, always a pleasure.
Yeah,
Andy,
likewise.
Katie. I can't see everyone else. I'm recovering from a detached retina. A little blurry for me. Thanks, everyone.
We
All
have a
right.
group that meets every couple of months. So if anyone out there is interested in just sitting in on a BST legacy, you know, kind of a networking group, we've got a group. Just let me know and we can invite you. You don't have to come, you know, but sometimes maybe you want to check it out.
Yeah. And we
That's
have a
awesome.
DO 101, just basic webinar once a month on the third Thursday of the month. So you can send people there. It's not, no one's going to talk to them, just kind of they can go through it and learn a little bit more, or in pushing them to their SBDCs to have a conversation. That's kind of our new.
Cool.
So thank you.
All right. So with that, we will end the meeting. Everybody have a great rest of the Tuesday. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Mark.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. And Maddie, I think you're the one that has to stop the recording, I think.